My friend brought his 240D by the other day and he was complaining about a rear end noise, kind of a clunk, clunk, clunk sound. So I said, hey, come on, let's get it up on the lift and we'll take a look at it. And right away, look at that. We got a torn boot right here, completely ripped through. That means all the grease in this spider joint has leaked out. And I suspect that this axle is going bad. So we're going to be probably pulling both these axles here. And I think at that point I can come back and kind of show you how you check to see if the axle joints are worn out. It's very hard to check it when it's in the car. So let's go ahead, we'll get in here, pull these axles out, and then we'll come back and take a closer look at them. With this old axle out now and on the bench, I can show you the damage that a torn boot can do to one of these. You know, I mentioned that you can replace the boots if they're torn. I should have qualified that by saying if you catch it soon enough. Apparently this owner did not catch this soon enough. And the car has obviously run quite a while without any, grease down in this spider joint. If you have a torn boot, you know your axles are good and it's just torn recently and you decide to replace the boots like this, you can do it. But if you have an axle and you don't know how long that boot has been torn, then you might be surprised to find out what has happened to it when you remove it. I also mentioned earlier in the video that you really need to get these out of the car to test the condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by showing you the good end here. Notice that the spider joint slides in and out. And if you slide it in and out, that's to compensate for the rear end moving up and down. If you slide it in and out, you can feel, there's a point where you can feel a little more looseness, and that's usually the point where the car is running down the road and wearing. And at that point, you want to grab both the axle and this can and try to twist a little bit. If there's wear in the spider joint, you're going to feel it, or you're even going to hear it if it's real bad. This end of the spider joint, also notice the rotation. Rotate it as far as you can through 360 degrees and make sure it's not binding or that there's any notchiness as you move this outer can up and down. Now let's switch it around and I'll show you how this side feels, the one that had the torn boot. First off, I can't even move it in and out. No matter how hard I pull, it's not moving in and out. And when I try to rotate it, it binds up. I can't move it back unless I actually force it down. So what was happening when this car was going down the road, this axle, the outer point of the spider was jamming, and then it would do this clunk, 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 as it would try to straighten out under each rotation. There's a couple other things that you should be aware of, and there's one particular thing that you should actually check on your own car. This outer spline that slides into the hub on the swing arm can also be a problem area if the bolt that holds it tight to the hub loosens up. And this happens more than people are aware of. I had a friend of mine who discovered that this bolt had loosened up on his 123 chassis, and this spline, the teeth had worn about halfway through. So you actually start getting movement from the spline into the hub. Even if you don't plan to do an axle change in your car, I would highly recommend that you pull the rear wheel and check the torque on this bolt. Remove it and put Loctite on the threads and reinstall it and tighten it down. If this bolt loosens up, it's very likely that you can damage not only the spline on the axle, but you can do it in the hub too, so you have a huge and expensive repair. These type of axles first showed up in the late 60s on the 114 chassis, and they were used on almost all Mercedes up through the early 1990s. Couple things you should keep in mind if you tackle this job. Plan to replace the differential seals. These are the seals that go on the center hub and seal the axle at that point. There's 2 or 3 types of seals, depending on the model. You got the smaller one here in the early 123 chassis and the larger one in the later models. So you have to be really careful the type of seals that you get. A lot of times you have to order by VIN number to make sure you get the right ones. But this is a must-have. Also, you'll need to have some anaerobic sealant for the rear cover on the differential. There's no gasket there. There's a special sealant that you'll want to use. There's a couple special tools you might want to have. So if you plan to do these axles yourself, check out my kits at Mercedessource.com, and we can get you all the parts you're going to need.